Hello YouTube, it's your old pal Fino. And this is it. It's the surprise. So Ibaraki Douji's not coming out until Onigashima roughly 1 or 2 events from now if you count Camelot. But I'll have my hands full with Kotaro, Kintoki, and Raiko. Especially Raiko. The point is that you're getting Ibaraki while she's still somewhat relevant. That, and while I was outlining this, I saw Hanako Green do a shining finger joke, and I was like, fuck. I'm on a timer now. Ibaraki is a 4-star berserker, and if you're rolling for Raiko, you should fully expect her to spook your ass. Though unlike with Steno, you get a functional servant for your trouble. Let's see, sub 10k attack puts her in the bottom half of the 4-star range, but she has more bulk to compensate. Now I've got a fucking riddle for you. Say you've got a crazy scale where the higher you are, the less coherent you get. Except EX rank because EX doesn't play by the rules. No, that's the actual definition. You make them pick a number on the scale and they pick a number off the scale. Alright, fuck it. My point is that Ibaraki has Mad Enhancement B, which is clearly just for balance since she forms coherent, complete thoughts and can communicate them. Unlike say Heracles who'll give you a creepy grin when you compliment him, and that's about it. She won't hit as hard as Herc, but this passive makes up for some of the damage you lose in her base stats. Also helping this is her first skill. Getting deja vu? It's the same as Shuten's. The exact same. But unlike Best Waifu, Ibaraki's deck and class multiplier put her in a much better place to abuse it. Let me tell you, extra power on Burning Finger counts for a lot more than it does on Party Foul. Being a team-wide skill, it adds to her flexible nature and team building. I do have some specific setups in a moment, but in general I found she plays especially well with Sabers and Berserkers. Pretty much anyone with 2 or more Buster cards is good enough. Red Atalanta, Dojin Liz, the various Ultrias, lot of choices. With that out of the way, I know what you really want. You want my shitty-ass teams that start okay, before they veer off into Steno memes and other abominations. Well, far be it from me to disappoint. So first off, we have Bust and Buster. This is a 2-threat Buster team that stacks buffs. Berserker of Eldorado is my favorite partner since she has 2 party-wide skills, an attack buff and a Buster buff. That and her reliable Buster chaining gives consistently good damage. Paul Bunyan also has good synergy with Ibaraki, having a number of useful AoE skills. She's a welfare servant to boot. You could run the 3rd Zerg in slot 3, but I recommend a supportive pick. One with a huge rack. Passion Lip is the most aggressive option. Between her Buster deck, taunt, and 4-star stat line, she can do a lot of work for this team. Then we have Leonidas, who packs a team-wide Buster buff and 2 separate taunts, if you count as NP. And as you can see, also a Bra Buster. St. George has a shitty deck for this team, but his 3-turn taunt and Bond Craft Essence should make up for it. With this, he gives a 1-hit invulnerability to other frontliners when he dies. With some careful timing, he can screen for multiple turns and then give the other 2 a free pass once the boss NP turn rolls around. Finally, we have Xuanzang, who's the most situational choice. For assassin encounters, you can combo her NP with Ibaraki and Eldorado's buffs to nuke Soul Eaters. She has a taunt, but I'd swap her out with Plug Suit once she's done her job. Craft Essence-wise, I'd run 2 copies of Golden Sumo, 1 for each attacker. Doing this before the rerun is possible, but difficult. So consider some alternatives including Limit 0 Over, Verdant Sound of Destruction, and Joint Recital which we'll get in Nerofest 2. There's also Paul Bunyan's Bondcraft Essence, which gives a 15% party-wide Buster buff. Ibaraki and Eldorado have their own, but the drawback is pretty steep and I'd avoid them. As for your taunters, you can run pretty much anything. Defensive CEs work to control how fast they die, Guda Guda Poster Girl gives you an extended taunt, and K-Scope is great for Leonidas. And I had a disgusting idea with the current event. Sayuki, Journey to the West, whatever. It's had like 10 different names. But here's the pitch. Ox Demon King. It gives a temporary team-wide Buster buff. Kinda bad if your guy's sitting there once it expires, but what if the equipper dies with some regularity? And say there's another taunter with another copy in the next slot, and one after that. Pretty gross, innit? In other words, you might not want to limit break Ox Demon King. Next up, we've got Perfect Defense. It might look really stupid, but try this on for size. Ibaraki's 3rd skill is a 30% defense buff with a 2-turn downtime at max rank, but for that first turn it's a 60% defense buff. Now I found something funny during Nerofest 3's Immortal Arash fight. A 100% defense buff makes you effectively invulnerable, and in a way that Invuln Pierce won't work on it. So if Ibaraki pops Shapeshift, she only needs another 40% to tank NPs with no consequence. You've got a few options. Waver has 30, Bedivere has 30, and Mash has 2 defense buffs. Her skill gives 20 and Lord Camelot gives between 30 and 40 in practice. So for the most part, Ibaraki and any 2 of these options will give you a perfect defense. And the best part is that everyone except Waver has their buff on a 5-turn cooldown. so you can do this regularly, depending on the boss. That said, running Ibaraki, Mash, and Bedivere seems really slow for brawling, so I recommend having a different character for trash mobs and pre-NP turns. Any offensive servant works, but I found Danzo Kato as a tempting option. She's a quick buster hybrid much like Bedivere, and she can donate evasion and invulnerability on 2 separate skills. A lot of creative ways to use that skill set. Barring that, you could just run Arash with K-Scope and delete the first encounter. If you're using the Danzo setup, Victor from the Moon is viable for both her and Bedivere. Without her, you'll want to consider 2030s, with an absorption CE for Ibaraki. It's a bit slipshod, but these characters don't have synergistic decks, so you'll have to find creative ways to increase your damage. Alternatively, Iron-Willed training gives between 15 and 20% defense. On Ibaraki, this means you only need one other source of defense to reach 100%, freeing up a spot for more aggressive options. The others can also equip it to get less fucked during enemy NP turns. No matter how you play it, this setup gives you the most consistent value from Ibaraki's second and third skills. Number 2 is a debuff cleanse and minor heal. Normally heals suck ass on berserkers with no difference in survivability, but Ibaraki can feasibly mitigate enough for this to be a factor. The real benefit of this team is that you don't need to use David, who's just gonna sit there and suck up stars once Harp of Healing is down. The drawback is that Merlin exists, and you'll find that in a lot of situations, he's a lot more efficient, because of his amazing cancer powers. Fuck Merlin. Let's see, some miscellaneous notes. If you're in a pinch, you can slap K-Scope on Nightingale or Asterios and swap them in to cripple the boss on their NP turn. Doing this repeatedly with an Ibaraki team is a crapshoot, so consider this a plan B. Another addendum. If you really like Tamamo, you can fish in the Halloween 1 gacha. There's a 4-star craft essence called Halloween Arrangement, and it gives a taunt and 60 to 80% defense for 1 turn. You can use these to cheese single target NPs with the plug suit and shapeshift. The rerun of this event has the same banner, and it should come this year. Oh, and one more thing.
One more thing!
Yeah, I know, it's a lot of fine print. There's a bunch of servants that have defense-ignoring properties on their NP. These will fuck you up, so do your homework before you try a tanky Ibaraki strat. And now we come to our final team. Shawty fire burning on the dance floor. That's not a dated reference. So let's say you're a berserker in real life. You've lost your mind, can't tell right from wrong. So you make a team with 2 Kyohimes. You see a Spriggan and you want it dead, right this second. You cast both defense debuffs, and in a fleeting moment of clarity, realize he's gonna put his foot up your ass with a massive attack buff you just gave him. What do? The answer is Rashomon Daengi. Yep, now it's your turn to toss around the Claw of Doom, and it works just like the version that's been bad touching you for the past month. You know, except for the obliterating part. It's Ibaraki, not Exodia. In this particular team, the buff purge is what you really want. Just wipe off those Kyohime buffs and 50 crit bonuses while you're at it. That and the defense debuff is a nice touch. It scales with overcharge, but honestly that seems like a trap, when you could just chain it with other damage NPs and get that benefit up front. Regardless, your target should explode from all these negative modifiers. To make this reliable, you should give Ibaraki something with starting NP. Kaleidoscope is the most conservative option, and you can go down to 50% CEs like Golden Sumo or Halloween Princess, depending on the strength of your balls. Remember that Ibaraki has a grand total of 1 arts card, so pick your fights carefully. While I'm talking about Rashomon Daengi, I have to make one correction to my old event guide. Killing an enemy with a purge effect will kill them through guts. That's not something unique to Ibaraki's raid. I could have sworn that on-death triggers work differently, like maybe it's just a thing with the Asan challenge quest. Or maybe I'm out of my fucking mind, who knows. I'm just gonna go and stack Kyohimes. Overall, Ibaraki is a flexible attacker that fits in almost any buster or buster crit team. Her utility skill set does make her a weak solo attacker, so run her in 2 or 3 threat comps whenever you can. The takeaway? She's surprisingly resistant to bullying. Next time, who knows? Maybe Xuanzang, or maybe I'll pretend this channel isn't just about FGO. We'll see. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, by all means like, sub, and tell your friends to stop playing Hanzo. Save a game, save a life.